Hi, my name is Sayuri. I have been living in San Francisco for just over a year now, and I work in customer experience design. I really like it. The weather is nice, it's always sunny. People are nice. I've been really enjoying it.
So what made you to here?
So the first time I came to San Francisco when I was in university, I came here to join this summer jazz camp. Fun fact, I like jazz. And I was really fascinated by how the nature, the city life, and art scene really combined together. And then I happened to join a company in Tokyo where its headquarters was located in Bay Area. So I just, came here for business trips, and I think I just naturally started to manifest towards living in San Francisco.
That's nice.
My partner happens to be a third culture kid like me as well. We've both been living in different parts of the world, and so I asked him where he would consider living next, and he happened to have the same city in mind. So that's how we decided that whoever got the chance to move here first, we would come here together.
So that was a plan.
This time, my partner got the opportunity to relocate with his company. Yeah, we decided to sort of kick off this journey. But then this was early 2020s, like in the midst of the pandemic. So I quickly learned that I couldn't get a sponsored working visa. So coming here would mean that I would have to put a pause on my corporate career. I put a lot of thought into it, but eventually I decided to move here.
Wow, that was a quite big challenge in the decision. Right?
Yeah, it was a big change.
Right, so could you tell me about your background?
Sure. I grew up in 3 cities around the world. I lived in Tokyo, London, and Hong Kong, and sort of went back and forth in between those places. I really loved getting to meet people from, various types of backgrounds and being exposed to all types of cultures from a very early stage of life. But I always felt a bit alienated because it seemed like wherever I went, I would look a bit different or think a bit different. So I just never felt like I entirely belonged anywhere. As a child growing up, I didn't really like to be asked, where are you from? Or sometimes even worse, where are you really from? Because I just simply didn't have an answer to that.
Right. Yeah.
And but it was a question that I would always get asked. So it started to make me wonder if I'd ever be this complete person without even knowing how to answer what seemed like a very simple question for others.
How did you answer that at the time?
I think it really depended. I would say, do you want to know my nationality or where I currently live? What type of answer do you want? But yeah, I would just answer whichever country I felt like maybe the other person wanted to hear. Because sometimes you could tell that the intention of the question was like, oh, you don't look like you're from here, where are you from? And I would just say, Japan.
Yeah, that was in UK or Hong Kong? Both?
Anywhere. Even in Japan or, in the US, I would get asked that.
It's such a simple question, but it's difficult for you to answer those questions, right? And how do you identify yourself, who you are, really?
I think I've learned to come up with my own definition of self. I think being a minority puts you in a vulnerable but very powerful position because when there aren't any buckets that you just automatically fall into, or there aren't many people who look like you or sound like you around you, you are naturally forced to sort of think about your identity and define yourself even as a small child. Over the years, I feel like this has become such a powerful force within me because my own definition of self comes from a very honest and authentic place. I was called a returnee when I was in Japan, which means children who return to Japan for foreign countries. I didn't really relate to that term because I didn't really feel like I returned to Japan. I sort of, came to Japan from other places. So it always made me wonder what I was.
You mentioned that yourself as a third country kid, but that term helps you to identify yourself a little bit?
I think when I first learned that term, I sort of saw a light bulb. I think now I see third culture kid more of a concept of celebrating people who have multiple cultures, ethnicities, or backgrounds within themselves.
As a third culture kid, and you moved to United States for the first time?
Yes.
Any difficulty? How did you overcome?
Coming to the US itself came with a lot of ambiguity because, like I said, we were in the midst of the pandemic. The city was pretty much still in lockdown. So it wasn't like we could just go out and meet people. I didn't even know when my work permit application would get reviewed because the offices were starting to close down. Felt like I wasn't really making any progress day by day. But then I thought about it and realized that, ultimately I was the one who made the decision to move here, and there were things that I could do with this opportunity. And I had many ideas that I wanted to try out when I was in Japan. So I thought to dedicate this time to that. And during that process, I actually learned that there are many things that I could probably learn by joining a more of a startup or venture type environment. And that's actually how I ended up applying to the company that I currently work at. Yeah, it's been interesting. So I transitioned from a big tech company to more of a venture-ish environment. In my previous role, there are probably at least 1,000 people who share the same role title as me globally. And whereas right now, I'm the only one who has my role title or primarily focuses on what I do day by day. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility and room for decision making. The scale of the business and product is also very different. So now I feel like I'm very close to both the product and the end users. And I feel very privileged to be in this position because as someone who sort of designs the customer experience, there's nothing better than being able to leverage real customer voices in creating solutions, and then also getting to see the direct impact on the end users. So it's been really, really, really fun.
Any challenges like after start working at this company?
I would go through a lot of change, not just the size of the company or the industry, but also role, the primary language that I use at work, and the product, basically everything. So with that much of change, of course, comes with a lot of ambiguity and anxiety. So I think I just really had to learn to let go of my ego of wanting to prove or wanting to be seen in a certain way, and just really focus on learning and making sure that I was focusing on the important things so that I can grow with this opportunity.
Does that come from company culture?
I think it was more of an internal change. Of course, when you join a new community or company, you want to prove yourself in some way, and you want to make sure that you're doing a good job. And I sometimes have like self-esteem issues, and I would start to wonder, am I doing well enough? And also joining a company virtually is a challenge because you don't really see those non-verbal feedback. Those can be motivational sources, but at the same time they can become noises that distract you from actually focusing on what you should be doing. So I had to really learn how to do that. First of all, letting yourself just take the time. You don't have to show everything what you have within the first 90 days, and nobody's expecting that. There's absolutely no need to do that. Because what matters is, what you eventually do. Also, better to understand first than to try to be understood. So you just really need to take the time, make yourself be sure that you are making progress, and it really is the big picture that matters and not, what exactly is happening day by day. Career is for yours to design. I think it gets very difficult, or you feel trapped when you try to fit yourself into conventional career tracks or ladders. And I personally think that the recipe to a meaningful career is that it aligns with your life mission, and it also enables you to leverage your strengths and uniqueness. In order to know your life mission, you really have to think beyond your career. What kind of person do you want to be? What do you want to have in life? What do you want to give in life? And what's absolutely essential and what's just nice to have. Mm-hmm. And then for your strengths and uniquenesses, I like to think beyond conventional skill sets that you might put on your LinkedIn profile. So maybe you are a naturally empathetic person, or maybe you're a really good storyteller. When you recognize those elements that make you unique, I think it's way easier to tie it to actual skill sets that you can really use at your job.
What's the motivation behind it?
So I'm someone who naturally enjoys working on my inner self, but I think, so I went through shukatsu in Japan, really trying to sort of fit myself into these roles that I thought I should apply for. And I thought that was more efficient because I just didn't have the time to, think about what I wanted to do in life. And, I had to apply to hundreds of companies. But then I wasn't making any progress that I was happy with that. And I realized that it was actually way easier and faster to first recognize what you want in life or how you want to be as a person before even thinking about your career, because that's the core base. That cultivated that mindset, and I just kept on doing that throughout my career.
Can I ask your career goal and your life goal as well?
My life passion is to sprinkle elements of inspiration that help people uplift their daily lives. And what I'm currently particularly interested in is designing experiences that help people cultivate emotional connection with themselves and others. So I don't know, where I'll end up eventually, but I think I'll just keep on heading towards the direction wherever that passion takes me. And I want to continue designing my life and career.